Progress, game boards, objects, viewed like pawns till we change up our mindset. Value of the dollars at the center of this conflict, where lives only matter if they serve to make a profit. But if a midget sees further on the shoulders of the giant, then we should see further than the tyrant. Build a future within alliance with successes, our science in the quest to go higher. It's the heart of the city.
Wake up, world. You're watching Heart City TV. I am so excited. This show is absolutely a special one to me. We have spent all morning sharing time with members of the DNC, talking about the platform, the agenda, the issues, and more importantly, the solutions. What needs to happen to really ensure that Black America gets its just due? It is no longer a conversation at the barbershop, the salons, the church, the schools, the dinner tables. We need now real action, a real promise turned into progress. That is our only agenda. And so I'm excited about Vision 2020, a series of shows right here at Heart City that will talk about the November election and making sure that we have a true agenda for our people, because this matters more than you could ever imagine. I'm also excited about leaders who understand purpose, who understand what needs to happen in our communities, who are leading us. We say all politics are local and all change begins locally. We need those local leaders who are willing to do the work, who understand kingdom and community, to ensure that we are covered with resource on both sides to get the job done. There's a leader in the house, one such person in the life of Lady Selena Barker. She is from the Refugee Community Church in Coolamy, North Carolina. Welcome home to Heart City, Lady Barker. It's a pleasure having you on with us. We want to hear you. We can't hear you. We want to make sure we get your mic covered. We got you. We had you just for a little bit. I think the devil is trying to get in the way. So I think we have a little bit of technical issue with Lady Selena Barker. But I think it's really, I'll make sure that she is able to work through and we bring her back into the space because I really want to have this conversation with her and make sure that we're covered in prayer. It's important to know that we are covered in prayer by leaders who are doing the great work. I'm going to try one more time to get her back in the space and with us. Lady Selena Barker, can you hear us? We can't hear you. Now we can see you. We see you well, but we just can't hear you. So I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll bring you out and then bring you back into the episode. I think in this space, I will take the lead today to cover us in prayer, but I do want to honor Lady Selena Barker because she is from the Refugee Community Church in Coolamy, North Carolina. She also has a album, Shout Right Here by Selena B, which is her gospel artist name. And she is the youngest of 5 children and the wife of 34 years to Pastor Rodney Barker, right at Refugee Community Church. They are doing the work in the community, making sure that we are covered, that all of the community has the resources that they need, not just in Coolamy, but around the whole North Carolina area. Let's go in prayer right now. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, recognizing that it is not promised. We offer it back to you from whence it came. We're asking you now to cover this show, cover those who are going to be on the show, cover those who are listening, who are frustrated with the issues of the day, the ones who are dealing with health issues, the ones who are dealing with challenges in work and employment, understanding that these are challenging times, challenging moments, but you are a conqueror. And so we lean on you now to guide us through. We are not just relying on you, but asking you to give us the power to do the work that is needed to be done. Faith without works is dead. We are ready and willing to do the work that it takes to make a better community, a better place for all of us here. Give us the ability to work through our issues. Allow us to fall back in love with each other, recognizing that we all have common ground. No one is greater than the other. This issue of race, this issue of prejudice, this issue of discrimination, we ask you to show us the way to deal with it and do it swiftly to ensure that we can work together to have the promise that many of us, especially people of color, have never really fully seen, witnessed, or experienced. We ask you to give us the strength to love each other as a community of color, understanding that there is no big I's and little U's, but all of us together can truly make a difference, not just for the kingdom, but for the country and for the world. And we'll be careful to give your name the honor and praise now and forever. Amen. So I thank you for joining with me in prayer with Lady Selena Barker in the wing. She is covering us where she is as well. Please, by all means, make sure that you follow her, support her and all the great work happening at Refugee Community Church. And we will make sure that we post not just her album, but the ways to worship and fellowship with Refugee right in Coolamy, North Carolina. I am going to a break. On the other side, we're going to talk about some issues. We had some great conversation with the DNC. You'll hear about that and so much more. Tell a friend you are watching HeartCity TV. We'll be right back.
What's up, world? Yeah, you. I'm Travis Scott. This is my McDonald's order. Follow me. Here's my quarter pounder with lettuce, pickles, onions, ketchup, mustard, and bacon. Here's my fries. Sometimes I do this. Then I dip them into barbecue sauce. Oh yeah, and my Sprite. Same order since back in Houston, and you can try it too. Gotta go. The Travis Scott meal, just $6. Say Cactus Jack sent you.
We are back. I'm so excited to talk about Vision 2020, an agenda for Black America. Hear all that is all that's been discussed in the conversation. It's not the fiction. And so it is so exciting to have with us Ashley Etie. She is the senior advisor for the Biden for President campaign. Ashley, thank you so much for joining us today on the HeartCity.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Listen, let's get right into this. You are, and I know, this is cliche-ish, but I'll go there. You are the fixer.
Oh, yeah. The real life Olivia Pope, right?
That's what they say, right? And so it's clear that President Obama has benefited from your presence around his administration, the party as a whole. have benefited from the great work that you have done to ensure that communities of color are really properly represented. But then more importantly, across the global landscape, there's balanced perspective as it relates to the politics of the day. We're here in one of the most probably contentious elections in America's recent history. Joe Biden is saying, look, we've got to change the guard. It's clear from the economy, it's clear from COVID and other issues that we need a change in the White House, and I'm that guy. He then tags team with Kamala Harris and has created essentially what has been probably one of the most diverse tickets from the Dems in some time. Talk about this platform and why it's so important for those who are undecided to get the message of change coming from the Biden-Harris ticket.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Not only is it the most contentious, I would really say it's the most consequential election of our lifetime. You know, it really does boil down to an issue of life and death for too many of us, for most of us. You know, we're getting squeezed, especially as Black people, from every angle. You know, 213,000 people have lost their lives to COVID because of the president's failure. Not just his failure, but his intentionality to lie to the American people. People have lost their lives because he lied. You know, more than 8,000 people across Pennsylvania have lost their lives. More than 170,000 have been infected, and Black people disproportionately have been impacted by this, by the coronavirus. So for me, what this election boils down to is an issue of life and death for too many of us. There are 30 million people who are unemployed. In Pennsylvania, the unemployment rate is at 10%, numbers that we've not seen since the 80s. Since the 80s when we were in a recession. Black male unemployment has more than doubled under this current administration. So this is not just an issue of Democrat versus Republican. This is an issue of who we are as a nation, you know, our health and our safety, our economic well-being, and people of color have been hit disproportionately from all fronts, with no plan from this president to get us out of this mess, no discussion of it. In fact, he's gone to the opposite direction, stoking racial flames and tensions, denigrating women, Senator Harris calling her nasty, and a host of other things. So that's what this is. That's what this election boils down to. You know, what do we want from our leadership? What do we owe and we deserve? And what kind of country do we want to live in? And do we want to feel threatened from all angles? From our health, our economic, to our safety walking out of the streets. Again, brothers are being shot in the back 7 times. Sisters are losing their lives in their house. You know, and how does this president respond? Again, stoking the flames. So, you know, we deserve better as a nation. We deserve better as a people. And I think Biden and Harris have a vision to do that, to move us in a new direction.
There's an argument that some are making that the president is, while he's in the White House and there are errant decisions around the COVID issue and how it's handled, he's not the one at South Beach. You know, he's not the one traveling on the airplanes. He's not part of the crowds that are part of the spreader community.
Sure.
For those that are listening to that and that's their argument, what would you say? I mean, obviously, we want leadership.
Yes.
From our electeds. But we also know that there's a federal and state dialogue that has been happening, sometimes contentious. We always want them to be on the same page, especially in a pandemic.
Yeah.
How do we manage the expectations from federal leadership when we have contention between the states and the feds?
Well, I mean, you raise a point. I have worked in the White House before for President Obama and for Vice President Biden. They got the 3 a.m. call. Right? In politics, we talk about the 3 a.m. call. Yeah. When you get it, it's a state of emergency. How do you respond?
Right.
And on multiple different fronts. In the same issues that we're dealing with now. When we came into office, we were in the Great Recession. Right? Unemployment was double when we took office. We turned around the economy and left President Trump with 5 to 7 years of record growth, record job creation, and he squandered it. Just like that, 30 million people are now unemployed. It's gone. right? We got a 3 a.m. call on another pandemic, Ebola. 4 people died. In this particular case, Trump gets a 3 a.m. call on coronavirus. 213,000 people died with no end in sight, with no plan. So what does leadership look like? Leadership looks like a plan. Leadership looks like you coordinate a 50-state strategy, working hand in hand with the governors. What this president did is he turned his back on the states. You know, ask your governor, ask anybody locally, ask the mayor, they will tell you. He turned his back on the states and told them, you're on your own. So the states started infighting. That's not what leadership looks like. That's not what we need from the president of these United States. What real leadership looks like is providing resources and accurate information to schools so that our kids can get into schools safely. Like my little one is running around here. I'm being a mom, working, homeschooling, all of the same. And too many of us are doing that with no end in sight, with no plan to get us out of these off Zoom and back in, back to brunches and lunches with each other, hugging our grandmas. I can't even hug my friends anymore. I'm like, it's a coronavirus. So it's a sad state that we're in now. And the reality is, though, we have no plan, and this president has not provided any plan to get us out. So when we talk about what real leadership looks like, it looks like Vice President Biden, who, again, got both of those 3 a.m. calls about the economy and about a pandemic. And what we did is, again, transformed it, turned it around, coordinated across states, worked hand in hand, and only 4 people lost their lives. That's what real leadership looks like.
Let's talk about leadership. Obviously, there was a major conversation around the selection of Kamala Harris for vice president. And we saw a split amongst the African-American community, if we're going to be honest about it. There were those that embraced it and appreciated that selection, understanding the diversity and the perspective that Senator Harris brought to the table. And then there were pockets of individuals who felt like her prosecutorial record was in question and did not reflect a Black agenda, specifically Black men in the undecided category, feel some kind of way about what they believe has been her record as DA and throughout her career. If you had to say a few words to those undecideds, those men who are listening right now, who feel like they may be ejected again from the political agenda from the Democratic Party, what would that message be?
I mean, the reality is I would say we see you and we hear you. I remember working in the White House watching, Philando Castillo die like in real time and feeling helpless about it. And I had the honor of, when I was working for the speaker, working with the senator to work on the George Floyd Justice and Policing bill, which is incredibly transformative. And Senator Harris helped co-author that particular bill. The reality is this, people call me all the time and like, the president should be doing this and Obama's not doing that, and he should be doing this and doing that. The reality is like going into the system and creating change is hard. And that's what she decided to do. And that's what I decided to do in my life. There's a lot of ways we can do that. And I think the parts of her record that, if we go back to California, that I can appreciate most greatly, which I've been able to do too, is to sit hand in hand with activists, bring them to the table to create and affect change. I mean, a lot of what she did at the state level was transformative. At the time, body cameras, she was the first to lead on body cameras, first to lead on excessive force, cutting down on excessive force, first to raise this issue of QI and how do we transform qualified immunity to hold police more accountable. She was a leader on that. But, the reality is a lot of time not a lot of time, but opinions and what we demanded changed very quickly between Philando, Castillo to George Floyd. Like that was a universe of time where we demanded even more. And what she did was she showed that she delivered on that with the George Floyd Justice and Policing bill. No knock warrants, no chokeholds, using the Department of Justice more aggressively to do patterns and practice investigations so that local communities know what's actually happening in their police department, that it creates more transparency, transforming QI, because we believe this is about accountability, holding police officers and police departments accountable. There's been a lot of misconception and disinformation from Trump about her record, and we're trying to in the next couple of days use the senator more strategically to speak to these issues. She does quite frequently, but in a more robust way, like, let's correct the record about where I stand on these issues. We're going to shut down private prisons, decriminalize marijuana, like all of these issues. I think what the community has been asking for, we delivered in a historic fashion with the George Floyd Justice and Policing bill. So that's what I would say to folks. Like, look, we're not just talking about it. We've written it, we've passed it, it's bottled up in the Senate, which is why people need to understand that you're not just voting for the president, you're voting for your senator. You need to vote for your mayor, who decides who your police chief is. You need to vote for the attorney general, because we've seen how that's played out in Breonna Taylor's case. All of these elections are critical, and all of them impact our lives. So yeah, I mean, there is no question that she is incredibly sensitive to this particular issue, and has taken steps in California as a prosecutor and in the U.S. Senate to make some transformative changes.
President Obama was criticized at one point when I believe the expectation of Black America was that we would have a Black president who would deal with Black folk in a meaningful way. And obviously the meaningful meant different things to different people, if we're going to be honest about it. One of the biggest critiques post administration was he was the president for all and not enough for Black America. We now find ourselves in a conversation around that same potential. Will there be a Black agenda included in a people of color agenda in this administration? Now, if we have a split election where Democrats win the presidency but don't overtake the Senate, and we don't have that full turnover, will the Black agenda coming from Biden-Harris remain a priority? And I think that's what many undecideds are wondering. Like, will we see priority focus on the issues that affect us the most? Not just criminal justice and Floyd, but the redlining that still exists around small businesses, from people of color. Those issues really matter. And so where does Biden and Harris stand on the commitment to all Americans, but specifically Black Americans?
Yeah, I mean, of course it would be a priority. I think, not only does he have people like me that surround him, but he also has the senator who, is a woman of color and a Black woman, right? And who, has a Black father and Black nieces. And, so she understands very clearly the challenges that impact our lives, but has a acute focus on them, and has always had an acute focus on them. So, I mean, forgive me if we've already gotten into this, but let's just talk economics, because the way that we approach these issues is, and she has said plenty of times, like, we can try to change the criminal justice system, but where we need to first start, and where this starts with the Biden-Harris administration, is focusing on the economics. So under a Biden-Harris administration, we make record investments in the Black community. To your point earlier, specifically small businesses, we've seen now 40% of small businesses, Black-owned businesses, are going under because of COVID. They likely won't come back. We would make record investments in small businesses, $100 billion in low-interest loans to small businesses. And the good thing about that is it's not just on an individual level. Me as a business owner, I can create and grow wealth and leave something back for my family, but it helps me transform my community, because Black small businesses likely are in Black communities. So we're talking about, you have a transformative impact, not just the individual, but on the community, but also creating more jobs. So that's one. The other is one that I can appreciate greatly, is a $15,000 tax credit for first home owners. This enabled me to buy the house I'm living in now. And, I live in Washington, D.C., and, all these communities are transforming. So now I'm sitting on a nice little chunk of change that I can leave behind for my little one, right? So it's enabled me to create and grow my own wealth and my own economic standing. The other that I think I'd love to focus on is a couple: increasing minimum wage, increasing wages, investing in job training, and apprenticeship programs, which has fallen by the wayside under this administration and too many others. In addition to that, canceling student debt, which again, I wouldn't have been able to buy a house if I had student debt. Canceling student debt for those who make under $125,000, which is transformative in people's lives and enables them to not only build wealth, but to buy houses and invest, etc. The third I would love to point out is a record investment in HBCUs, which far surpasses even what we did under the Obama administration.
So $70 billion, correct?
Right. These plans are real. They're hard. We've sat down with civil rights leaders and civic leaders from all across the country who've all had ideas about what the agenda, the Black agenda should look like. And we've been working in concert with them on this agenda. So hold us accountable, hold us to it. There is no question we're committed to it. And, and to your question earlier, we have plans on our website that are just specific to African Americans, and even plans that are just specific to Black men in particular. I don't think we ever did that under the Obama administration. I don't recall that. I would have written it myself. I've written this one. I would have written that one myself, right? I don't recall Donald Trump. I think he's introduced a platinum plan, which was, more pandering. And in fact, I'm insulted by it that you didn't call it platinum plan. But nevertheless, there is a firm commitment in a way that we've never seen it before. So I say that to say that we're being heard and we're being seen. And I think because of Donald Trump's failures, our challenges have been exacerbated and require a set aside agenda just for us. And that's what we've created.
I'm excited to hear some of these answers that you've given us. I think it's really important to have people of color at the table in meaningful ways. And I think it's important also for the electorate to know that there are women of power and color in this space, especially as we talk about a political agenda and, quite frankly, a time, if I'm going to be frank, this is a crucial time for Black America. Who says by 2040, if we're not careful, median wealth income will dip as low as $5.40 per household. It's important that we...
And what we do today is all the more important.
Exactly.
Right? We got to stop the bleeding, and that's why we have to get Donald Trump out of office, because we're just bleeding profusely.
Ashley Etie, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
All of your expertise and perspective, and for what you're doing for communities of color everywhere. We honor you and appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Let's do it again.
Another great Democratic leader in the space, Michael Blake, the vice chair of the DNC and New York State Assemblyman. He joins us today to talk about platform, Vision 2020. What is at stake for Black America? Michael, thank you for joining us today on HeartCity. Welcome home.
Great to be with you, Malik. I'm just trying to bring some good weather from out east, because I don't know what y'all feeling out there right now.
Hey, listen, we need all the good weather we can get, man. It's messing with my golf season, brother. but we have this major election at stake. All across America, we're having conversation about what a Republican agenda is, what is a Democratic agenda. Obviously, there's been what is essentially 4 years of a Trump presidency. Many, however, on the ground, specifically in Black America, are unsure of what has occurred in the current presidency and what they can expect from a Biden-Harris presidency. What is at stake from your perspective in this election?
Well, to me, this is the framing of can Black people make it? Will Black people survive? Will our generations to come have a chance? I have been thinking regularly about a dear friend of mine, Ezekiel Cousin, who 46 years old, CWA member, Verizon employee, sent me a text and said, I'm concerned. A lot of our guys getting sick right now.
Yeah.
And about 3.5 weeks later, Zeke was gone. Think about the black businesses, 40% of Black businesses that are not coming back. The amount of young kids who they're trying to figure out remote learning.
Yeah.
They're trying to figure out how to engage. And so, Black folk, let's be real right now. On one side, you have a man in Joe Biden who has given his life to service, is consistently trying to focus on what are we doing around racial equity? How do we improve and ensure that Black and brown businesses get access to capital? What are we doing so that we can actually live? And on the other side, you have a racist, sexist, misogynistic demagogue who has had a long history of generations of not giving a damn about Black people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so when people ask me the question, what is at stake? Do Black people and brown people survive?
You know, that is a very morbid question, but one I think that we need to not be afraid of. I think we have to take some of the emotion out of politics and really begin to look at the brass tacks of what's happening on our bottom line, what's happening in our healthcare, what's happening in our homes. Many of us, you know, we know the old adage, all politics are local, but I add to that, all change begins locally. It's important for us to get engaged right now if we really want to make a difference. Now, Time Magazine, and I'm going to put you on the spot here, they wrote at 25 years old, Michael Blake may have more to do with Barack Obama's chances of becoming president than anyone besides the candidate himself. It's clear that you have a track record in, you know, getting behind powerful, moving machines and making sure that we have great candidates in the space who can deliver. This platform, this party, this candidacy in Biden-Harris has gone through a lot in the Black community, if we're going to be honest. When Biden selected Senator Kamala Harris, there were many people that were excited about that. There were Black men that felt like, hey, her record on you know, prosecution for Black men and the DA race would come into question. And so to those undecideds, to those who are on the fence, who feel like as a Black man, they're going to be left out of the Biden-Harris presidency, speak to them and talk to them about what you see as a possibility from the Biden-Harris platform, but more importantly, the expectations of today's landscape.
Well, first, I thank Jay Newton Small for that article in Time Magazine, but I'm a smart Black man, so I'm going to say Michelle Obama and Sasha had far more to do to make things happen in that man. I want to make sure I get home okay.
Absolutely.
Right. Look, I'm the first Black man elected to the DNC leadership since Ron Brown. I directed African American outreach and minority business outreach for President Obama and Vice President Biden. But before politics and before being a vice chair, before being an assembly member, I'm a Black man from the Bronx, New York, who's endured police brutality, who has seen family members be incarcerated, turn their lives around. I have a brother who served this country for 29 years in the Army, endured not once but twice police brutality myself. Graduated from Northwestern University after a near fatal car accident and still came back to serve my community. And so when people are asking me what's at stake for our people, and in particular Black men, brothers, we want to have a chance to get access to capital so we can start our businesses and be the entrepreneurs we want to be. We need to win. We want a chance to be focused on what true criminal justice reform can be, so that we're not just locking up our people and not building jails, but building schools. We need to win. If we're talking about what's happening in terms of how do we actually have police accountability in our communities, we need to win. We're focusing on what's happening too often in our communities around My Brother's Keeper and changing the narrative so that Black and brown men are seen with the respect that we deserve. We need to win. And so I come to you, to the brothers and sisters that are out there that are saying to themselves, well, I don't know if I should vote. I don't think it really matters. Ask yourself the very simple question. Do you have a job? Does someone have their life? Did your schools get shut down for your kids? And if any of those answers are a yes and those changes, then we can't continue down this trajectory. And so when I hear the rhetoric of Well, do we support Senator Harris, who will be our next vice president? Let's talk about what she did on the First Step Act and transforming communities to give us a chance for criminal justice. Let's talk about the opportunities right now and making sure we have to have true racial equity in this administration with Vice President Biden when he's president, of saying we got to get $50 billion out to our Black and brown businesses and focusing on community development, financial institutions, and demonstrating that 50% of funding for a new relief package will go to small businesses. These are things that will impact us, that will benefit us, that will change the game for us. So let's be very clear. That's what's at stake in this election. That's why we have to be in the game. And you know, Malik, I just tell people, make this personal right now, right? Like, how can we say at all that an election doesn't matter when we've seen the disaster of the last 3.5 years and the disaster of this year? This is what's at stake for our people. And so to my brothers, you sitting on the sidelines and not voting is essentially a vote for Trump. So the amount of time you would take to stand in line for sneakers, the amount of time we would stand in line for the concert, the amount of time we would stand in line to go holler at a shorty, the amount of time we would do any of those things, take that time and go vote.
You break it down into real tangible examples of timeshare, what is meaningful and what would be most impactful for the community. You tweeted something that I think is really important to note. You said, we have to be a part of the change all the time. We cannot be part-time temporary change makers. We have to be fully committed to creating change all of the time. One of the biggest missteps that some will note in the administration during President Obama was that many focused on getting him in, but they forgot midterms. They forgot the understanding of there's a point guard and a shooting guard. There's a power forward and a small forward. And if we don't have those pieces working in tandem, you're not going to be able to score and at least defend effectively. Some of those missteps occurred, and we witnessed an administration go through tremendous challenges trying to get things accomplished. Speak to the broadcast audience right now about the importance of being engaged, not just in November, but in every election, getting engaged and being fully committed all of the time.
So let me make it real clear on the first piece, and then let's talk through the impact. Do you stand in line at the club just to stand in line, or do you stand in line because you want to get inside and make sure the party jumps off? So why would we say a first step was, okay, let's just elect Obama, and then not make it happen and continue thereafter? And taking it to the next step, if you go to a real live party, great restaurant, great live jazz set, whatever it may be, you want to go back again. You want to stay engaged. You want to stay and committed. Now, we got to make sure, though, that the music is jumping. We got to make sure that the food is right. We got to make sure that everything is set so that you're like, I got to get back there. Mike Blake said this spot was live, this spot was jumping. I saw it for myself and saw what's happening. And so to that point, you care about criminal justice, then you need to care about the police chiefs and the DAs that get elected. You care about what's happening, especially with the census being cut off and what's going on in terms of funding for your schools and housing, then you got to care about the state legislators that are being elected. You care about what's going on the state level, you have to care about the governors. You want to talk to me about infrastructure in your cities and roads and bridges, you got to care about the mayors and city council members. And you notice I said all these things, and I'm talking about all these things, and I didn't talk about the presidency yet. I didn't talk about Congress yet, because we have to make sure that we are in the game all of the time. So we got to start playing three-dimensional chess. We got to start telling people very clearly, do you care about us as a people? Well, yes, then you have to be voting all the time and in holding us accountable as elected officials thereafter. I've been in the state legislature for 3 terms, and critical element of this is what we did here locally. My Brother's Keeper, Raise the Age, minority women-owned businesses. That didn't happen from the White House. However, here's the intersectionality that's about to happen, Malik. All the challenges across the country, in large part right now, is because Trump and the Republicans have refused this latest relief package for state and local funding. So all the things we want to make happen in our communities cannot happen because the money's not coming down. And then what happened? then your state government and your city government is trying to figure out, well, you know what? I can't do sanitation 5 days a week. We can maybe do it 1 day a week because we don't have enough money. I can't figure out, meals every single day for the kids. So it's maybe 3 days a week. And so you're watching in real time what happens and the transformational opportunity that exists. And so for all of us, again, I'll make it real clear. You don't just go stand in line at the club. You want to have a good time there and then come back again. And it's our responsibility for those of us as Democratic leaders to make sure that we show you what happens when you're in the park. That's how we break this down and make it real for everybody.
Well, Mike, look, you already said it's not just about being in line, but making sure that there's food there, that there's a good DJ, that the party is popping off. So wherever you're throwing the party, Mike, that's where I want to be, man. And I think it's really important that we break some of this stuff down to layman terms, to real relatable items in everyday life. And you did just that. I honor you, Mike. Thank you so much for spending time with the electorate and coming home to Heart City to talk about these issues. I think, and it's great to have mainstream media display the issues of the day in the way that they do. But I think it's really also important that we have those that are of color, that are able to speak to our communities of color the way we understand it, the way that we get it, and make it a immediate issue for us to get out on November 3rd. I'm looking forward also to having you over the next couple of weeks. We'll talk about the elections and break down some of these issues. I'm excited about your expertise and your perspective.
Couldn't consider it done. I'll try to come up with more food analogies. I'll talk about oxtail since I'm Jamaican.
Oh, come on,
going and we'll keep that going. And for everybody, last thing, iwillvote.com. You're going to hear us say that a lot because, this is an election season, early voting, absentee voting, everything that's happening. So if you're trying to figure out how to get in the game, iwillvote.com is how we need you. That's what's at stake. And I'm looking forward to being back with you very soon.
Michael Blake, the vice chair of the DNC. It's important that you listen to these words, but more importantly, share these words with those you love. I am excited about those conversations. I think it's really important that we get this information out. Share this show. It's not about me. It's not about Heart City, but we cannot keep talking about what we need to do and how we need to do it if we don't have the proper information, the proper tools to do just that. Yes, it starts with a vote, but it's a continued conversation. It's a continued commitment. And if we don't engage those who are frustrated, those who feel like they are not properly represented, we'll never increase our turnouts beyond the 13 and 17% that we see in Philadelphia and other major cities. We can no longer allow for a 13 to 17% turnout to actually make the difference and the decisions for the majority of the vote. That's just crazy. It's absolutely insane. The other thing is, you can't say I'm here to handle my business if you do not show up at the shareholders meeting for one of the biggest corporations in the world. That is the United States of America. You're the boss. It's time to check the management. Have they been doing the right things? If not, we need to make some decisions and we need to adjust some things in the space. That's November 3rd. Make sure you get out and vote. Bring a friend, tell a friend, get everybody, grandma, little Ray, Uncle Junebug, whoever. Take the whole barbecue, the whole family, and make sure that they all show up to voice their opinions about what should happen in the space. It is EKG time. I'm excited. Delia McLaughlin is back with us. She is an amazing juggernaut in her own right. She is a child advocate. You already know that. She is an activist. She's a leader. She's a scholar. Lincoln, stand up. One of yours, LU, is in the building using trauma-informed care and dealing with our issues in almost a surgical way. And I think that it's so crucial when we talk about how we're healing. You can't heal PTSD legislatively. You can't heal trauma with a bill. It requires those who are willing to do the work. Delia, I want to make sure your mic is good. Check your mic, make sure it's not muted, because I want to hear your voice. Welcome back home to Heart City.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Look, it's great to have you back with us. In the middle, your partner in crime, Kendall Chase. For those who have been wondering, how in the world are all these heavy hitters talking to Malik and why? It's clearly not because they want to hear my voice. It is the work of Chase Goldberry and Associates and Kendall Chase. Welcome back to your show, essentially. It's great having you with us as well.
Good afternoon, Malik. Good afternoon, Delia.
Good afternoon, Kendall.
It's so funny as if we haven't like talked to each other all morning, but we'll do that. We'll do the routine. Here's the thing. I'm going to play the EKG, and because we're going to get into that, but I also want to talk to you guys about what you heard, and I want to make sure that we kind of get feedback.
Yeah.
I think it's really important that we have some real-time conversation about what's in the space and what's at stake. All right?
Yeah.
Are you guys ready for the EKGs?
We're ready.
Here we go.
This is the EKG, the part of the show where we place America front and center on the monitors of the American people. We will look for irregularities in the heartbeat, offer solutions on the issues we find in order to make America healthy once again. So fire up the machine. Let's start the EKG.
This week's EKGs have been brought to you by Dashuri CBD products. Make sure you check them out at mydashuri, DASHURI.com. First story, the interviews that we just had, Ashley Etie and Michael Blake, Vice Chair of the DNC. It was great to have them with us. To hear Mike break it down, I mean, I felt like I was having a conversation with my boy outside the barbershop, you know, and
Exactly.
I think it's really important that we break down these topics in ways that are digestible for the community. Delia, what were your thoughts in listening to the interview?
Especially the brother from the DNC, he was very relatable. You know, I felt like, you know, I was sitting at my kitchen table, which most political conversations that we have in our families occur, right?
Right.
Right.
And we need folks to talk like that. We need folks to make it very realistic and basic, right? So I felt what he was saying, and I think it should be a push behind that. Because our priorities have to be in line. We have to start prioritizing what's important to us, right? And this is it's not just we're having a presidential election, right? This is election season. There are local and state officials that who affect us every day that we need to pay attention to.
Right.
And this is our future at hand. So we got to pay attention. And I appreciate everything he was saying.
Yeah, I mean, Kendall, I felt like, you know, my brother from another mother was breaking down some inside baseball stuff. But, you know, that is not to discount Ashley Etie, who senior advisor, senior strategist for the Biden for President campaign. I mean, she cracked this thing off and got folk on base so that Mike could bring it home around some really tough issues. We talked about Black men. And some of the visceral reaction that they had to Senator Kamala Harris in previous records. But then you also saw a commitment. And it's easy to get commitment from candidates when they're on the campaign trail. But to hear those who are behind them saying, no, look, I'm the one who literally wrote that information on the plan on the website, on the white paper. I'm the one who crafted this. So not only did I write it, but I'm also committed to making sure that they see it through. What were your thoughts around hearing those words and others from Ashley?
So for me, the sticking point with Ashley was that Ashley has been through 2 administrations. You know, she's helped both senators that are crafting the laws, but also the big visionary behind what our country has done. And so for me, when you can connect what we have done to what we're going to do,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I can really connect to that. Obama's presidency was by far not perfect. You know, he didn't accomplish everything, as many African Americans have clearly stated. However, there were some tangible things, and one of the things that stuck with me is that she said we didn't do a good job telling everybody what we did.
Yeah.
You know, we and I think that's our problem sometimes. We don't lay out what's been done so that people can see that there is truly a path to what's going to get done. Stick with us. The Sixers said, and maybe it's just been a little too long with the Sixers, trust the process, right? So
Right.
I'm done trusting it with the Sixers. However, with the government, I'm willing to give it a
Joel
little longer.
Embiid doesn't want to hear that.
I don't care. Embiid, step up your
I mean, he
game.
got a good coach, right? He came from a
Right.
good
Hey,
team,
come
right?
on. The doc
Yeah.
is now in the building. I mean,
So
trust
we got a new
the process.
coach, right? So maybe it's time, guys, for a new coach, you know.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, we can't expect change to come very quickly. And that's what Ms. Etienne, to me, demonstrated was the commitment and the work, but the time. You know, it's not going to happen in 4 years. It took Obama 8 years to get some of the things he wanted accomplished. It took Clinton just as long. Heck, it took Bush just as long. We got to give people time. However, we also have to be committed to whatever process we believe in. So we can't keep giving up. I think too many times our people give up. They want the quick fix. It doesn't happen like it does on Scandal. It takes a little longer than that. You know, for us, a season is 365 days. It's not 6 weeks.
Yeah. And two key episodes with a season
Exactly.
finale, right? Delia,
Exactly.
so the ACA was one of the things that the President Obama and really his administration hung their hat on. One of the crucial pieces of legislation that they pushed in the first 2 years. Many will say that was a political football that was dropped in many ways because there's still components of the ACA that leave much to be desired. If you were a Black small business, depending on what your revenue stream was and what position you were in on the totem pole, you saw premiums go up. Even individuals saw premiums go up. What looked like a potential tax if you did not even have health care, which was a challenge for many because they're like, hey, if I can't pay health care to begin with, how do I pay the tax, right? And so there were challenges in the space around ACA. I'm sure that we're going to revisit healthcare, especially if there is a Biden-Harris presidency. When we talk about trauma-informed care, you're on the ground. You see the needs of our people in some pretty intimate ways. What are some of the things that we should be focused on that we want to make sure that our legislators understand that need to be included in whatever the revision of a healthcare plan will be?
So one of the big concerns I have with that is the pre-existing condition, right? If I have a mental health diagnosis, right, that's a pre-existing condition.
Yeah.
Would in turn say that my premium should be higher because, you know, I need more work, right? And this is discriminatory, right? I think that should not be a factor. I think because it deters individuals who want to get the healthcare they need, right? And it's no equity there.
Yeah.
So as a Black female, and you know, I come from a Black family, we have pre-existing conditions, right? I'm an asthmatic, right? I have a family history of heart failure, heart condition, you know. That's a concern, right? But we already have a stigmatism about getting medical care because we have these pre-existing conditions.
Right.
To have that written as a cost factor, we're going to further have resistance to healthcare. And one of the things that I struggle with folks, and I talk about them, I said, you know, our white counterparts are big on prevention, right?
Yeah, they are.
And we big on treatment, And we should be big on prevention, right? So we should be doing what's needed to prevent the exasperation of these pre-existing conditions.
It's something that you said that I think really rings true and hits home. Kendall, you work in the community with churches, organizations, nonprofits. Delia brought up a great point. Prevention is where it's at. A lot of that starts at home in our local communities. As we talk about, post-November, whatever administration will be, if there is a Biden-Harris platform that turns into a presidency, what are some of the things that you see that need to have a bridge built to resource, especially as it talks about prevention?
Yeah, so for me, prevention is everything. Like I truly believe that this is where too many of our members of our community lose focus. We want to repair instead of build strongly a foundation that allows people to really grow from there. So is that, our schools, our federal oversight over education trickles down into a much more comprehensive look at what our children should be learning, how they should be learning, what resources are given to our teachers. Our teachers should be well paid people. I mean, the fact that we still have school districts that are paying people less than $30,000 to educate our next generation makes absolutely no sense. So we're seeing where we're putting a lot of money into infrastructures that are not going to help us prevent things. So education is an area that, I've been paying attention to. Yes, healthcare. I'm also a person with the pre-existing condition. So that's always going to be a concern for me. But the fact of the matter is, if I'm sick or mom is sick, I am going to do things that are going to probably help her feel better, but not necessarily help her get better, right? And I'm not going to be focused on the things that I need to be focused on, say my education. So that's a big deal for me. And I really would like to see more collaboration at this level. Like at this point, my true desire is that the federal government provides an infrastructure that allows states and cities and local municipalities to have what they need to create thriving communities. That, when people are working, when people are educated, when people are fed and their health is taken care of, you have great communities that want to stand strong, celebrate all those things. And that's the kind of America I'm truly desiring to see. I'm not trying to see a community full of gunshots and children being hurt, and children not thriving in education, stores closing. I prefer a local store over the big mega boxes. So there's a lot of ways that I think, I believe everything starts at home. We start locally. But I do think our federal government has some responsibility to that as well.
So you talk about community and a better America. Obviously that has always been a work in progress for many people of color. We feel like that may not have even started if we're going to be truthful about it. There is one amongst us in the culture who decided to send us a recent message. I'm going to play this for the close of the EKG, and I just want to get your responses to his message.
America. What is America's destiny? What is best for our nation, our people? What is just, true justice? We have to think about all these things together as a people. To contemplate our future, to live up to our dream, we must have vision. We as a people will revive our nation's commitment to faith, to what our Constitution calls the free exercise of religion, including, of course, prayer. Through prayer, faith can be restored. We as a people are called to a greater purpose than ourselves. We are not only a beacon to the world, but we should be servants to each other, to encourage each other, to help each other, to lift up each other, our fellow Americans, that we may all prosper together. We have to act on faith with the sure knowledge that we are pursuing the right goals and doing the right things. We will build a stronger country by building stronger families. Families are the building blocks of society, of a nation. By turning to faith, we will be the kind of nation, the kind of people God intends us to be.
I am Kanye West, and I approve this message.
Now, I'm not voting for Kanye. However, where's the lie?
So I'm going to jump in here.
Delia went to, she said, I'm
Delia
sipping
was like,
tea. I'll wait.
let me just sip my tea.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we get lost sometimes. We think that just because they're not associated with the major party, that they don't have a strong opinion that really can positively impact our country. And so that sense of collaboration and, friction kind of brings about the most polished stone. I think we're forgetting that in our current political state. And we just want to dismiss thoughts. Kanye has some very valid points. I too am not voting for Kanye. But I would like to see some of his ideas at least talked about at the table.
Absolutely. Delia, let's talk about this. I mean, so Kendall, we now have 0-2 for Kanye in the EKG column. Did that commercial do anything for you to sway you to vote for Kanye West?
No, I felt like brother was stating the obvious, that we something we have known for decades is something that we need to do. But I also think, I don't believe you, right? Because money gives you an opportunity to have privilege, right? So you can create this lifestyle for your family, right? Because, and I get it, blood, sweat, and tears got you where you are, but you almost forgot where you came from, right? And the opportunity that you have, that money affords you to say, this is what we see, and I have these rose-colored lenses, and this is what I see as the future, right? But you forget, your family's from Chicago, right?
Yeah.
You're not from Riverside, you from the South Side, right? And you didn't have any money, but we still were struggling. We still had family. So I think we go back to the roots and maybe do some grassroots work and see things a little more practical in reality. Yeah.
So I think the reason why I wanted to play that was because we hear so many times that someone like a Kanye West will sway people of color, and I think that is so disrespectful to us as a people. I don't care how many bars Kanye, and he's got some great albums. He is in my playlist. However, that does not mean I'm going to vote for him. Whether he recites Bible verses, whether he brings Jesus on the screen or not, it doesn't matter to me. I'm more astute to just take that commercial and run with it. Many will say that having these kind of commercials in the space will sway voters. I don't believe that. And I'm appreciative of getting your perspectives because I see that you feel the same way. It doesn't sway, but it does spark a conversation. Kendall Chase, thank you so much for joining the space, Delia McLaughlin. As always, it's good to have you with us.
It's a pleasure. I'm excited to be invited. Thank you.
Look, we're going to do this thing once again. So you've heard from two powerful leaders in our community. Look, it doesn't matter how many commercials Kanye brings out. Folk ain't voting for Kanye. And the ones who weren't voting for Biden or Harris or Trump or Pence either. Those individuals weren't going to be convinced or swayed anyway. They already were feeling disenfranchised. They already were disengaged from the process. However, I think to Kendall's point, we grab some points and bring them home. So, even there's an old saying that says even a broken clock is right twice a day. This might be his first or second time, depending on your perspective on it as well. Delia also brings up some crucial points. It was never going to sway me. If anything, it brings up a conversation around the things that we need to ensure that folk can right set themselves after having traumatic experiences, after going through issues, because there are many that have resource to be able to deal with issues and challenges of life. But to Delia's point, there are so many more who don't have the ability to have top-notch care. And those are the things that we need to talk about as we move forward in these elections. On the other side of the Black History Fact and the Song of the Week, Brandon Lofton, a member of the North Carolina General Assembly, House District 104, will be with us to share his focal points on not just the elections in North Carolina, but around the country as a whole. The show Vision 2020, Heart City. I'm so glad that you have joined us today. Our Black History Fact of the Week is a powerhouse that we all know have been impacted by his work and appreciate the work that he is continuously doing. None other than Robert F. Smith.
Robert Frederick Smith is best known as the founder, chairman, and CEO of Vesta Equity Partners, a multi-billion-dollar private equity and wealth management company that employs over 30,000 people around the world and focuses on the growth of firms that develop enterprise software. Forbes ranked him on its list of richest people in the United States in 2019. Smith joined Goldman Sachs in mergers and acquisitions in New York City in 1994. As co-head of enterprise systems and storage with Goldman Sachs, he executed or advised on over $50 billion in merger and acquisition activity with companies such as Apple, Microsoft, Texas Instruments, eBay, and Yahoo. Smith left Goldman Sachs in 2000 to found his own company, Vista Equity Partners. This company has had over 140 completed transactions since its founding. Vista Equity Partners has managed funds for hundreds of limited partners, some of which include prominent public, private, and corporate pension plans, endowments, family offices, and people with high net worth. Smith is also a philanthropist. He founded Project Realize, which is a national effort to help inner-city companies implement specific operational improvements. He is the first non-New York City resident to be named chairman of the city's Carnegie Hall Board. In 2016, he donated $20 million to the Smithsonian National Museum for African American History and Culture, and another $20 million to Cornell University to increase the number of African American students in engineering. In 2019, he donated $40 million to Morehouse College to pay off the student debt of graduating seniors. Our hearts go out to the life and continuing legacy of Robert F. Smith. You can find this Black History Fact and more on our YouTube channel. Please share this Black History Fact with those you love.
Our song of the week is none other than Brandy. She is back. This record, Borderline, is absolutely amazing. Make sure you check it out on our social media page and add it to your collection. Please support good music. It's only $1.29 on the Google Play or Apple Store. This brother is doing some amazing things in the space. The list goes on and on. I could break down his resume. I'm excited to have him with us. Brandon Lofton, Democratic member of the North Carolina General Assembly, House District 104. It is great to have you on Heart City, brother. Welcome home, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
So let's get into this. Your pedigree, your accomplishments says that you could have done so much in other areas of service to the community. Obviously, you could have gone into the for-profit, arena and racked up. But you said, look, I'm going to take everything, package it up, and get into public service, not elected office, but public service. What What was the focal point around that? What was that pivotal moment that said, you know what, I'm going to jump into the race because I believe I can make a difference?
Yeah, well, I appreciate you, and I appreciate the question, and thanks for the work that you're doing and helping to increase awareness around the issues. You know, for me, it basically stems from two things. One, you know, I grew up in North Carolina public schools. My mom was a public school teacher. There was, like many of us, I had a situation where, you know, when I was in third grade, they began sorting the students and deciding who had access to the gifted classes. And your teacher actually had to recommend you to be able to take the test. And I wasn't recommended or selected to be able to test into the program. But because my mom just happened to be a teacher at that school, she was able to walk into the principal's office, say, my son deserves a shot. I got a chance, I took the test, got into the program, and that just changed my whole educational career. From that point forward, I had access to all the best teachers that my town had to offer, the most demanding classes. And the thing is, I knew it. I knew all along the way that by the time I graduated high school, any success that I had, I knew it wasn't because I was somehow special or more deserving. You know, I had friends who were just as smart as I was, that wanted the same things that I did. They just didn't have that person in the room who could advocate for them when they needed it. And so for me, that just kind of really sparked an interest in advocacy and fairness and justice. And so I decided to become a lawyer, became a civil rights lawyer, and then, you know, went on from there.
You know, education is such a crucial issue, topic, not just of the day, but for people of color, it has been an ongoing issue for some time. Many argue around public school and school choice, and that's a national conversation, having the right to educate your child in the best way, shape, and form. You also chaired the Council for Children's Rights, looking at the whole of the child, their life in a 360 platform. As we talk about it, not just the state elections, but the national election as a whole. What should be our focus when we talk about our children? A lot of times we get lost in educational funding conversation, but the other parts of children's lives get lost as well. How do we ensure that the whole is not lost going after the part?
Yeah, I think that's a really important question. You know, for me, with my time on the Council for Children's Rights and watching what I've seen in the community and my experience as a father, I've got two boys who are 12 and 14 years old. And, you know, we're trying to raise them in the middle of a pandemic and in the wake of the killing of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery, trying to help them make sense of the world. I think there are a few things at stake. So obviously we have policy initiatives and decisions ahead of us, whether it's school funding, whether it's healthcare issues, whether it's voting rights, things of that nature that will obviously impact our kids' futures, our environment. But beyond that, we're at a crossroads as a nation in terms of the direction that we're headed in. We have an administration that wants to take us, from my perspective, in a different direction than I think was best for providing more opportunities for our kids. So yes, we absolutely need to invest in education because frankly, you know, if our kids aren't educated, they're not going to have as many opportunities available to them. But we also need to invest in the right leadership and vision for our country as a whole. And frankly, that means leaders who are committed to a vision of America that actually is committed to the fundamental truths found in our Declaration that all are created equal. And that's, you know, unfortunately not a given.
And we see the concept of all being created equal being paused at the door for many of us, not welcoming into the room as a overarching principle or topic or a theme for that matter. All politics are local, but change begins locally. Talk about why it matters when we talk about House districts, when we talk about General Assembly. Many times in our communities, we get focused on the big ticket race, and that's great. You know, who's going to be the mayor, who's going to be the governor, who's going to be the president, but there's so much in between. that we need to have a real conversation about and understand the mechanics of it. Talk about the General Assembly and what happens there that matters for all of us in our various homes and communities.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. Like many people, I worked and volunteered with the Obama campaign in 2008. I went out, became a precinct chair, was elected a delegate, and then worked in the mayoral race in 2009. And then in 2010, I voted. I didn't organize. I didn't knock on doors. I didn't do a lot of the hard work that I'd done in 2008 and 2009. Yeah. And I think that was the case for a lot of people. And we saw the results. The most consequential election that hit us as a nation was actually our state legislative races all across the country in 2010. That wasn't just the year that the Tea Party happened and they took over Congress. That was the year that they took the majority of state legislatures all across the country and then started gerrymandering districts. Right. So there are a couple of consequences to that. One, the state legislatures control the majority of the issues that we care about that mostly impact our lives. But two, they also draw the districts for elections. So in North Carolina, once the Republican Party took over in 2010, then they gerrymandered the districts to help guarantee their election going forward. And not just for the state legislative levels, but also for our congressional reps. So in North Carolina, we have 13 congressional reps. They drew the districts so that they could have 11 to 3. And when they were asked why you drew it 11 to 3, the Republicans responded because we couldn't figure out how to make it 10 to 2. Because they were intent on trying to guarantee that their party came out on top, despite the fact that North Carolina is, in fact, a 50-50 state. So we're a 50-50 state, but the majority of our congressional delegation, large majority of our congressional delegation is Republican, and that's a result of the legislature drawing those districts. And that plays out in a number of states all across the country, which has impacted not just state politics, but our national politics as well.
It's interesting. They make the comment, and on both sides, honestly, yeah. Victor goes the spoils. Elections have consequences. However, saying that consistently, in my opinion, started this pendulum swing of power. Much of the country is firmly in the middle somewhere. As centrists, they're leaning a little bit left, a little bit right, and then we have our extreme sides. But it seems like power started swinging very wildly since, really 2008. And to your point, the midterms of 2010. How do we begin to slow that pendulum down so that we can get bipartisan consensus as we had years prior to? Obviously, race plays a major role. One would be a fool not to think that the election of President Obama brought an undercurrent of racial tension never seen before. But it seems that we do have an opportunity now to begin to talk about bipartisanship in a real way. Have you seen some of those opportunities in the House where you are? And do you believe that that can occur on a national level post-November? Absolutely. Absolutely. So my district, just for example, there are more registered Republicans than Democrats in my district. It's about 82% white, 12% African-American. Mm-hmm. And it's, more Republicans than Democrats, more unaffiliated voters than Democratic voters. You can't win in a district like this if you don't believe in reaching across the aisle, talking to people who may or may not agree with you and trying to find consensus. Mm-hmm. So I absolutely, I'm an example of it. I've seen it in other members from, in our state legislature, and even in the most, what turned out to be the most contentious issue in our legislative session was Medicaid expansion. Mm-hmm. Even with that issue, if you watched it on the news, you might have thought, well, that's a partisan divide. Democrats and Republicans just disagree and they can't, find consensus. That's really not what happened. You had 55 Democrats co-sponsor Medicaid expansion, put their name on the line saying, I, Brandon Lofton, support Medicaid expansion. You had 21 Republicans do the same thing on their version. Wow. So anyone can tell you 55 plus 21
That's a sizable majority out of 120.
Absolutely.
We should have been able to make something happen. But because the leadership at that time didn't want to see that kind of collaboration, it was never brought forward for a vote. There was never that opportunity. So on the one hand, it was one of the most frustrating things because, there are 500,000 people who need healthcare coverage, especially now during a global pandemic, and we could have given it to them.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, it was promising in the sense that there is consensus, there is agreement between the parties. You just have to create the conditions that allow us to find common ground.
Political fatigue is occurring across communities of color everywhere. In 2008, I too volunteered in many ways for the Obama campaign and knocked on thousands of doors as president of Young Dems in the area. And we were able to say things like change you can believe in. And people were riled up. They were energized. They were engaged. Even in 2012, we both, probably in your area as well, you found it a little tougher to engage, but nonetheless, there were some commonalities of energy that could be created. 2016, not so much. 2020, definitely not in the African American community. And so we're watching a party, speaking specifically to the Democrats who have enjoyed a long-term relationship with African Americans in recent years, now figuring out how to re-message and to craft once again to be effective. What are the messages or messaging that has been used in North Carolina? What has that been? And has it been effective? And what have you found personally in talking to communities of color that has really moved the dial in helping them to re-engage in the process?
Yeah, so I think in North Carolina, on the one hand, in 2018, we saw a lot of energy because we were all organized around one simple fact, which was we needed to break the supermajority. Everyone could kind of wrap their heads around it and say, look, in our state legislature, one party has complete control. They have such a large majority that they can do whatever they want. They don't need a single vote from the other side, and the governor doesn't have a veto power.
Right.
So that message could bring in people from all different backgrounds and party affiliations. I think now what's mostly pushing people to the polls and motivating people is that they want to see our government actually be responsive to what's happening on the ground. And I think that vote I mentioned last time where we failed to expand Medicaid, from my perspective, is one of the biggest failures of our state legislature. And especially when you consider the fact that there was a willingness on both sides to do something and people needed us to do something. And yet you had politics getting in the way of service. And I think it goes back to the point you raised earlier about service versus politics. I think that, some people, I think the message that hopefully will resonate with communities is that our leaders need to be engaged in public service and serving communities and figuring out a way to help to meet the needs as opposed to just playing political games. And I think right now in my district, I know that a lot of the voters are just tired of the political games that have been played.
Yeah, and I think that's a sentiment that is felt around the country. Let's talk about small business. Obviously people who have worked their entire life to have a vibrant business, to stay in their community, to invest back in their community, they're finding themselves holding their last lifeline. And quite frankly, in many cases, that lifeline is broken as they've tried to pull themselves up from this wave that has crashed economically across the country. This tidal wave has decimated not just small business, but specifically African-American businesses. We see that almost 50%, Forbes is reporting, of businesses owned and ran by people of color will not return post-COVID. In North Carolina, talk about the landscape of small business and what you see as a next step post November. I mean, obviously, once we get through the national elections and simmer down, there's still much to be done at home, especially when we talk about our commercial corridors and people of color.
Yeah, that's exactly right. This is something we'll be dealing with at least through the next fiscal year. And you're right, it's been an absolute, it's been a big problem for our small businesses and Black-owned businesses in North Carolina. And, I think we've provided some relief with that, with the COVID relief funds. The federal government stepped in through the CARES Act and provided some money that we can use to help our small businesses. We frankly need more. We're dealing with, there'll be new estimates coming out soon, but we're dealing with a significant projection of projected revenue shortfall for next fiscal year. And unlike the federal government, the state level, we have to balance our budget. So that's going to decrease our ability to be able to provide additional relief to many of our business owners who are struggling. So we absolutely need the federal government, particularly the Senate, to step in and provide some of that relief so that we can help more of our small business owners in North Carolina, and so we can avoid having to have cuts in essential services like education. So that's absolutely critical. We've seen record unemployment in North Carolina as a result of COVID-19. My office has spent a lot of time dealing with that and trying to help connect people with benefits. And that's one of the things that we need to make sure on the other side of this, we provide more assistance to our small businesses, and we also fix our unemployment system. Because unfortunately in North Carolina, we actually created the least generous unemployment system in the entire country, both in terms of the amount of benefits you can get, the length of time you can receive benefits, and we need to definitely look into fixing that so that we can help more people.
For Black men who are watching this episode right now, seeing two Black men discussing the issues of the day, you have the privilege and honor of seeing it at both levels, not just as a community leader, but as one who is elected. And so you see the sausage making process and the challenges that exist in it. For those who are watching and they are fed up, and you and I have both come across them leading up to this November election, those who feel like they are not going to be heard, that their vote does not matter, that more importantly, a national platform will once again commence without including them. What would you say from your heart to theirs around this election and why they should get involved and vote?
Yeah, I think the bottom line is that this is your country. This is your election. This is your country. It is up to all of us to step in and, help us move forward and help us fulfill our vision of creating a country where all are, where we do, where our reality does reflect the fact that all are created equal. I started my career, I mentioned earlier, as a civil rights lawyer. I started working with Julius Chambers, and he actually, there was an announcement yesterday, they just decided to rename a school here after him, but he argued Swan versus Charlotte Mecklenburg schools helped desegregate schools all across the country. And I started working with him, obviously on the latter end of his career. And by the time I worked with him, he had been around long enough to see, frankly, a lot of the work that he had helped get done, see it undone by resegregation in our schools. But he kept working, he kept at it, he didn't lose hope. And when I asked him, how do you continue to stay at it? How do you continue to stay motivated after everything you've endured? I mean, his house was bombed, his car was bombed, his office was bombed, and yet he continued to push forward. And over the years, he saw some of the things that he risked his life for. He saw those things roll back a bit with resegregation. I asked him, how do you continue to push forward? And he said, well, what's the alternative? What's the alternative? And this is our country. This is, we have the ability to influence what happens right now in this election. We're just, 21 days out from hopefully a course correction and helping to move things in the right direction. But it's not going to happen unless we all pitch in and not let someone else make decisions for you, but you make your voice heard this November.
I think you're spot on. In many ways, we've allowed for many years, especially in urban communities, low voter turnout to allow sometimes 13 and 17% of a population make decisions for us. And you can't complain if you're not in the process. You know, it's very easy to complain about the ref's call, but if you're never on the floor, if you're not on the bench, if you're not a coach, your yelling is kind of mute in the grand scheme of things. And so, Brandon, I honor you and your body of fellow legislators who are working to make sure that communities of color are being heard in North Carolina. It is no small feat, to your point, to run in a district like House District 104 as a Democrat and be elected. And so we honor you and appreciate you and recognize the strength and leadership that you bring to the table, especially in these times. To be a Democrat in a conservative district is almost a unicorn of sorts, but we're thankful for the leadership and work that you do.
Well, thank you. And I thank you for your leadership and thank you for the work you're doing on the show. I was definitely enjoying the conversation when I was in the green room. And so I appreciate all your work, and thanks for having me. I'm grateful.
Thank you. Consider it home whenever you want to come back, man, and share what's happening in North Carolina. This is your home.
I appreciate it. I will. Thank you.
So we have heard from Brandon Lofton, representative in the General Assembly in North Carolina, House District 104. Make sure you go to his website. We'll post it on our social media pages so that you can check him out, the great work that he's doing, support him. Let those who are in the area know that you've heard from Brandon and you believe in the work that he's doing. It's important, whether you're in the area or not, wherever we find great leaders, those who are doing the work, those who hear the call of the people and answer it, that we support them as well. We talked throughout this whole show, Vision 2020, not just about the platform and the party. Obviously, we heard from the very top of the Democratic Party at the highest levels, but we also heard from those who are on the ground in some very serious ways, making sure that we are hearing their issues, hearing their opportunities, and more importantly, hearing the work that has been done in the space. This show was about the Democratic Party. And so you heard consistently from Democrats in the space. One topic that we brought up throughout each one of these interviews was a focus on small business. 2/3 of America's engine is small business. Don't let anyone tell you differently. Yes, there are some major corporations who are doing some great things in the space. Congrats to them. However, it's the mom and pops. It's you, small business owner, that's making this engine work. Without you, we do not have a future here in America, at least not in the current landscape. And so we celebrate those who are entrepreneurs in their own right, who are fighting through COVID, fighting through economic downturn, fighting through issues of funding, especially around communities of color, and they're getting it done. They're connecting with the community, they're keeping the lights on, they're developing relationships with leaders, and then also ensuring that there's a give back. They're keeping the dollar circulating throughout our community. One such individual is none other than Darlene Jones. She is the celebrity chef.
I'm not a celebrity.
Of Star Fusion right here in the Philadelphia area. Darlene, you're in the kitchen. You just made me hungry right now, looking at all of the great stuff behind you.
All right, thank you. How you doing, guys? Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited to be here.
Look, it's good to have you. Welcome home to Heart City. Clearly, the Philadelphia, Delaware Valley area knows Star Fusion very well.
I hope they know it.
You're doing the work. Talk about starting this business.
Oh, wow.
It is a relatively new business in the landscape, but you're doing great things, spreading the message, not only just through good food, but good service, which is also crucial in communities of color, making sure that we're taking care of our folk. But What got you here to this point? I mean, starting a restaurant is no easy task.
I don't know, probably one of the hardest thing I ever did in my life.
So let's talk about it. For those who are excited about entrepreneurship, who are looking at food in the food industry as a potential lane that they want to travel, talk about your journey and how we got here to Star Fusion.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you. I actually just finished celebrating my 5-year anniversary.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you so much. Star Fusion Express is one of my new stores. We opened on June. We opened right in the heart of the pandemic on June of 2020, June 13th, 2020. The journey came back 5 years ago. Well, actually 8 years ago when I lost my job and I didn't know what to do. I started kind of like selling dinners in my house, but always had that strong corporate experience. So it was kind of easy to transition, like the selling dinners from my house for making it a hustle to kind of make it into like a business. So that was one of the things that I did 5 years ago. And now we're on restaurant number 2 for Star Fusion, but overall we got 3 for our brand. We have a juice bar called Blue Diamond Juicery. All of our stores are located in our community. We pride ourselves on hiring within our community as well. So yeah, 5 years in.
5 years. So, let's give the broadcast audience the facts on the restaurant industry. Most do not survive within the first 3 years.
Absolutely.
So the fact that you're in year 5 says much about the great work of you and your team.
Well, it says that I'm crazy. No, I'm on.
Look, all of our great leaders are willing to push the envelope to get it done. It's going to take those long nights.
Absolutely.
Those risks and leaping off the cliff with no wings. Talk about that moment that you said, you know what, I know this is going to work. I'm jumping off the cliff and we're going to open these doors.
Good, exactly, yeah. So I do apologize. They were calling me from the back. As you see, the business never stops here. Thank you for having us on Heart of the City. We're going to take care of you right away. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So anyway, back on the Heart of the City, we started 5 years ago. I was cooking dinners in my house. It turned into a big business. We have over 20 people employed. What helped us out is we definitely targeted our area. I'm from West Philly, so opening up in my community that's underserved and undernourished is something I pride myself in. Our store on 63rd Street is on 63rd and Woodbine. It's kind of like in a liaison of like Center City. No, I'm sorry, not Center City. City Line Avenue customers and West Philly, so it's kind of in the middle. This location right here is something that I'm extremely passionate about because my first job was on right here on 52nd Street. It was on 52nd and Chestnut McDonald's. I worked there for 3 or 4 years of my life. So putting restaurants in my neighborhood and getting to hire people from the neighborhood is something that I pride myself to do. All in all, it took a long journey. It was a lot of sleepless nights. Yeah. Obviously, when in my first year, I was the only chef. I was the delivery driver. I was the only cook and everything else. And now, thank God, through the grace of God, although we are in a pandemic, we are trying to survive through it. Black Restaurant Week is actually starting at the end of this month. It starts October 25th. That's going to help generate some revenue in our own neighborhoods. Yeah. I know that's very hard to do sometimes. So the fact that Black Restaurant Week is highlighting us is something I'm super, super, super proud of.
I honor your commitment to employing from the community. That's so important, making sure that jobs are created. And I think, and many times we look for elected officials to create jobs for us, but it's really small business that does that. And then we look for our electeds to support. And so in this election season, there's so much to discuss around topics and issues of the day. But as a small business owner who's looking at the landscape, not just locally, but nationally, what are some of the things that you want to see happen in this upcoming election that will assist businesses of color and help them to move forward?
Well, I pray that everybody just go out there and vote.
Yeah.
Number one, go out there and vote. Man, we have to get that man out of the office so he can help us continue to flourish and grow our businesses. Being from a woman of this community is super important that everybody, please go out there and vote and do exactly what you need to do to get that man out of office. Thank you.
You got right to the point. Look,
I don't play.
just vote.
Go out there and vote so we can continue.
We'll deal with policy tomorrow, but today, vote.
Absolutely.
Talk about the menu. I mean, obviously, those who have experienced Star Fusion, especially the one right on 52nd Street, they rave about what has happened. You are a part of the vibrant turnaround in that area. For many who aren't familiar with that, the Park West Shopping Center, I believe that's what they title it, has been a revitalization point for the community and businesses like yours. Let us know that community of color are here to stay. Gentrification will not push us out of those doors. Talk about the menu, why the selections that you have are there, and more importantly, what those who are looking at now the menu and now the juicery can expect from you in the next couple of years.
Gotcha. The menu. Let me just bring you all full circle. Why I even named it Star Fusion. So Star Fusion means bringing cultures together. Star Fusion is a cross between American, Asian, and Caribbean. I was able to kind of like master that creation and bring all those flavors together. Star Fusion restaurant specialized in mostly like dine-in, full service entrees. That's location is located on 2013 North 63rd Street, right off 63rd near Lancaster Avenue. Star Fusion Express was birthed from Star Fusion. Star Fusion Express is a fast food version of Star Fusion restaurant. The menu is short and it's kind of straight to the point. So think of like a fast food, like a McDonald's, but more on a high, or more on an upscale. Like you can't get crab cakes at McDonald's,
right?
Obviously. So it's more of a fast casual. In a mood for something really good and something really fast and something convenient, Star Fusion Express is where you would go. The menu features buffalo shrimp, bang shrimp, honey sesame shrimp, crab cakes. You don't have to take that trip to Maryland anymore. You can come right to 52nd and Parkside, because you can even get our Cajun catfish. That's definitely something known in DC.
There you go.
So I have it right here for you in West Philly. Parkside. The menu, we're also known for our for our chicken sandwiches. Now that happened by mistake, but I am happy that we did take off, because we have over 6 varieties of chicken sandwiches, from the Chipotle chicken sandwiches to the buffalo chicken sandwiches to the honey cheddar chicken sandwiches. It's just a plethora of opportunity of food at Star Fusion Express.
Wow.
You know?
So first of all, you made probably not just me, but the whole entire team hungry with all of those options, and they sound absolutely amazing. What's ahead for you? Obviously, there's going to be more locations, but when you look down the line, as an entrepreneur, as a leader in the community, as one who has the community's heart in mind, what's the landscape look like for you in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I actually have an announcement to make. I was just asked to sit on the board for the National Restaurant Lodge Association in Philadelphia.
Wonderful.
Biggest opportunities I will ever have in this type of career. I've enjoyed. People from the likes of owners of McDonald's and owner of Wendy's sits on that board. So to have someone like me, to be a woman of color in my community, to sit on that board, I'm looking forward to opening up more doors and more opportunities to people and women who look just like me. I'm just so overjoyed with that news. I got that news yesterday. So for 2021, I'll be on the board of the Restaurant Lodge Association, opening up plenty of doors for other people.
Listen, I love, first of all, we celebrate that. We honor you, and we're excited for not only your appointment, but the work that you're going to be able to do. The one thing that I love that you said, you didn't, while you celebrated it and said, look, this is great for me to be here, right behind that, you said, I'm looking forward to opening more doors.
Absolutely.
That is so crucial. For us to get in the room and not just stay in the room for ourselves and get comfortable in our seats, but to make sure that there are other seats at the table for those who look like us to be able to do what they need to do. For the entrepreneur who's watching this right now, looking at you and going, wow, I'm trying to make a choice between staying at my job and doing what I love and making the same jump the way that Darlene did. What would be your advice from your heart to theirs around making the leap and taking that jump of faith?
But that's the thing. Don't be afraid of faith. If you're going to take that leap of faith, don't be afraid of faith. It's only you and God. no one else. Don't never let nobody tell you that you can't do it. If it's an idea you're uncertain of, try it anyway. Don't never let nobody tell you that you can't do it. Keep pushing, keep moving. I tell everybody the same thing, from my little sister to my big sister. Keep pushing.
Keep pushing. Darlene, you are an absolute rock star. We honor you. Thank you so much. For the broadcast audience, please, by all means, we're going to post every location for Star Fusion. We'll post the information on the juicery as well. Get over there, support. Y'all like to buy the bar out? Well, buy Star Fusion out. All right, send her back to Restaurant Depot and to the food service organizations so that she can continue to do the work. I mean, we have to support our own. Darlene, we honor you. Consider Heart City home. So whatever you have going on, let us know, and we'll continue to support you.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate this time. Thank you so much.
We appreciate
Black
you.
Restaurant Week starts October 25th.
You heard it from Darlene. Black Restaurant Week starts October 25th. I need you. If you're in the Delaware Valley, please, by all means, stop by Star Fusion, support her, support the great work that Darlene Jones is doing. This show has been absolutely amazing. We broke down from the DNC at some of the highest levels of the strategy and planning. Hey, here's what it is. Here are the missteps that we experienced. Nonetheless, here are the opportunities that we have to make a difference. They laid out a case for you. Much of the conversation, which I honestly appreciated, was not just about the president and saying, well, the president is bad. The president is bad. That's too easy, especially for those of us who follow politics at a very close level. It's not just enough to say someone is bad. Show us the good in you. What can happen from your leadership, from your candidacy and administration. And that is what we saw. You heard from Ashley Etie. She broke down as the senior strategist for the Joe Biden for President campaign what has been done and what is in the works to happen in the space, and not just from her perspective in the election side of this. She also worked in previous administrations. And so there was a balanced perspective around here are some of the opportunities that we have still on the table to accomplish. You also heard from Michael Blake, who is the vice chair of the DNC. He broke it down. It almost felt like it was barbershop talk for many of us. Look, you don't just stand in line to get to the club door. It's to get in the club and to make sure, to his point, that the party is lit, it's turned up. And so it's not just enough to register to vote. It's not just enough to post it on Facebook and tell your friends and family that they should vote and then you don't. And it's not just enough to just vote. You've got to do more. You've got to stay committed to the tweet that he talked about in the interview. This commitment is a full-time one, 365 days of the year. We're going to have to be committed to change. No matter what your decision is on November 3rd, the one decision that is absolutely crucial is that you get engaged, that your voice is heard. There is no excuse for not participating in this election. You also heard from Brandon Lofton, who broke down the thing we tell you all the time, all year long. All politics are local and all change begins locally. We talked about North Carolina, what's happening there. In North Carolina, you know, is a slice of what's happening across America. These issues are not just unique to certain locales. And while there are unique elements to them, nonetheless, there's still funding issues for education. There are still issues for small businesses and the funding that needs to occur there. Home ownership issues are absolutely crucial, especially for Black and brown. We're talking about wealth creation. If you don't have a home, it is absolutely difficult to create wealth. That is a journey that we all have to take. We all have to take. And if we can pay $1,800, $2,100, $2,400 for rent, we should also be taking a serious look at how to handle a mortgage, how to ensure that we're able to bring those payments down to, $1,100 and be able to pocket and invest the remaining that we once paid for rent to someone who could care less whether you and your family are going to be taken care of. We all know evictions are coming as a result of COVID, and many Black and brown are going to be impacted by that as well. And so housing is equally as crucial. Darlene just kind of capped this Vision 2020 show and broke down why small businesses are so important in our community. They are the cornerstones for communication within our community. Many of us know we've left flyers and all kinds of communications about events and issues that are happening in the community in our small businesses. Those businesses matter, because if we don't take care of Black business, if we do not support Black businesses and ensure that they have a pipeline of clientele, rest assured that another business will take their place that very well may not have a full investment in the community. There's something to be said when we have businesses that are owned by people who look like us, that support us and our efforts within the community, who reflect the issues that we deal with. They understand the issues that we deal with, and more importantly, they're committed to walking with the community to bring the change that's needed. And more importantly, Black businesses, more often than not, are going to reinvest back into our communities. So we're able to circulate that dollar. We talk about Rosewood, and we talk about Tulsa, we talk about 4th Avenue, and all of those amazing stories of Black wealth and cities that in towns that were able to bring about transformative change through wealth creation. All of that can happen right here. Just requires us doing the work. And so today, if you haven't already, take the first step. Make sure that you're registered to vote. Make sure that you have your ballots in hand. If you're going to do the mail-in ballots, if you're in PA, make sure it's no naked ballots, that you have it in a second envelope. If you're going to vote on election day, make sure you have a plan to do just that. Rain, sleet, snow, hail, doesn't matter. Whatever it is. I think everybody who cares about this election is going to be committed to helping each other get out to vote. That's the first thing, making sure your voice is heard on November 3rd. The second thing, have a conversation with local electeds. It's not just enough for everyone to direct conversation back up to 1600. 1600 is one element. But when we talk about local police brutality, that's here at home. That's local stuff. That's city council. That's state representatives. When we talk about funding for schools, that's state level conversation, especially here in Pennsylvania. When we talk about small business tax breaks, when we talk about making sure that we welcome small businesses into commercial corridors and doing the things that Black businesses need to survive, that's local. Not only can city council entice small businesses to come and stay, but so can the state. Long before we have a federal conversation at the SBA level. For those who are looking for development, who are looking at commercial corridors, and we're watching all kinds of development come in, license plates from different states. That's a union issue that we need to really have a conversation about. However, all of that development is coming through places like opportunity zones or programs like opportunity zones. I need you to know about them. We talk about them all the time. It's not just enough to wait for a city council person to tell you about it. You can go to the website. We'll post it on our social media for you to get this information. The opportunity zones are allowing for capital gains to be invested into communities of opportunity. Typically, that means communities that have been left behind in development. And those individuals who invest those cap gains, who keep them in for periods of 10 years or more, get that investment of cap gains almost tax-free, which means you're going to see a boatload of money from individuals who are wealthy coming in to projects in your community. I think that we should be at the table making sure that the big developers are talking to us about community benefits and community benefit agreements that don't, I'm sorry, I'm going to get in trouble for this, but they're not left on playgrounds. We don't need more playgrounds. We don't need more dog parks. We don't need superficial things. And those things are great in their own right. As a dog owner, I love a dog park, but we don't need more dog parks. I can walk my dog around to Fairmount Park or wherever I need to get my dog to. What I need, more importantly, is commitment to small businesses and ensuring that if we're going to have one big development, that right behind it, we have small businesses that are created by people of color and people of the community that are employed, in terms of the work staff, by people of the community and people of color. And if it's a big organization, that they include in their employment mix people of color. Those are non-negotiables that we need to have in our community benefit agreements. In addition, we need to ensure that affordable housing is a real conversation. For those of us in Pennsylvania and Philadelphia, we recognize that solutions were created around the Parkway. And for those who have camped out in the Parkway, to address and advocate for issues of homelessness. However, there are thousands of individuals who are being impacted by affordable home ownership issues. We got to have that conversation. In those opportunity zone spaces, we need to take a look at blocks that need to be developed and come together as a CDC, come together as a fund, opportunity zone fund that can be created. You need a lawyer to do that. And the lawyer will walk through and create an opportunity zone fund that the whole community, literally the whole block, can get together, create an opportunity zone fund, present a plan to a investor who's looking to develop or get involved in development and invest through their cap gains. And you can have your whole community redeveloped and have some ownership stake in it. There are ways to do this. There are ways to do this. Don't let people just tell you it's all about the election. It's about the knowledge, knowing what's available, knowing what's in the space, and knowing what we can do together. I love each and every one of you. Vision 2020, the November election, ensuring an agenda for Black America. I'm committed to making sure that you hear from both sides. You'll hear from the Republican Party next week and their platform. We're going to put everything before you so that you know the fact, not the fiction, that we're not based on hearsay, that we're not based on the rumor mills. We're going to kill all of that. You're going to get everything you need to make the decision for you, for your family, for your community, and for your future. I'm so excited that you joined us today. You can follow us on Heart City Radio on social media, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube page, please. We need more subscribers. It's so important. You can subscribe. All you gotta do is click the button. You'll become a part of the Heart City family. You'll get updates, notifications, and bonus content as well. And I need all of you to have a beautiful week and feel beautiful. Look beautiful and act beautiful. Why? Because you truly are beautiful. I'll see you next week.